back to the band shell. One of the things with the plans that I'm personally concerned about, I took a field trip out there with John Sanders last year when this first came to our attention, just to see the inside of the facility. A humidity control system is paramount to that. Is that going to be included in
Right,
this?
yes. If I do remember, I had the same discussion with John last year, and in the basement area where no ventilation, there is gonna be some ventilation put in so that basement area can breathe.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, good stuff. Take the vote. Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yeah.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Biter?
Yes.
And I support yes. Motion passes 7-0. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 9, resolution awarding the purchase of a Kubota V-Series toolcat. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore, welcome back.
Good evening, members of council. Yeah, what you have before you is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a Kubota V-Series toolcat. This was approved in this year's budget, 2024 year's budget, and the capital projects, which we moved that to ARPA to be paid out of ARPA. What this piece of equipment will do for the streets and parks, we used to borrow a toolcat from the parking authorities. That was never ours. We always had to share it with them. So I decided this year to put one in the budget to have one for us because we do a numerous amount of work with that, which it's a UTV vehicle, which will come with a plow to plow the levee system for walking downtown sidewalks that we have. I'll have a salt spreader on the back to take care of the sidewalks down there, and a spray tank for the back. We spray all the parks. We spray the levee systems with it. So we'll use it quite a bit. So I made a decision to put one in a budget this year for the amount of $37,111.30. We will be purchasing this piece of equipment from CH Walsh. This went through Public Works and it also reviewed by Austin.
Thank you,
Any
Mr. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Katz, Public Works.
It did come to Public Works, and I think Scott told you exactly what this is going to do. Plus, there's capabilities of adding other, what would you call other things
Attachments.
on it?
Yep,
Attachments,
yep.
yes. And I know from watching you with the borrowed one from the parking authority, there was a lot of use with that throughout downtown. And because of the size of it, they probably could also do some alleys when it snows, so, it's going to be a piece of equipment that they don't have to go borrow anymore. It's going to be multiple uses.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of events we have in the city, that's also going to be a big factor. We can utilize that for the Little League Parade, anything we need it for. So it'll be a good tool for us.
Any comments or questions for members of council? Ms. Mealy.
So just to be clear, this isn't actually coming out of the general fund budget. This is ARPA funds?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, not to be a broken record about this, but we're then budgeting for it in the capital projects fund moving forward, right? Okay. Or
Yeah,
this
this
has
will
not been budgeted in the capital projects fund
No.
up to this point? Okay,
Not
So
yet.
this will be-
This will go into the capital projects going forward.
okay.
Probably these type of equipment I have that I'm doing might be about 20 years.
Okay,
So this
got
will
it.
go into it.
So, okay, so about $2,000 every year. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Sure. Why not?
Sure. Mr. Biter.
Yes.
Sure. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move to item 10, a resolution authorizing execution of a municipal services agreement between the city, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for maintenance of slopes along Miller's Run. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore.
Good evening. It's a lot to say, so what he said, yes. So this is this is an agreement that we have with the Department of Transportation for along Miller's Run. This is something we do every year. The change this year is we had a discussion with them and we are going to do a 10-year deal with it. I believe in your packet, it shows the amounts for every year. It's not a lot. There was one change where I forget. The address is, I think who pointed that out? Needs to go to 100 West Third or West Third Street. So the amounts, there we go. I don't have a page number. Exhibit B. So it goes from 2024 to 2033. And every year it goes up a little bit for the cost of doing business, fuel, everything. There's not a whole lot of work we do here. Ditch cleaning, 1,500 lineal feet, something we take care of every year. So we decided to do a 10-year deal, so it's not every year we're doing it. This went through Public Works as well.
Mrs. Katz, Public Works.
Yes, it did. Came to Public Works. And this is, I'm glad to see it's going to go to 10 years at this point, because this comes to us every year.
Right.
And the increases aren't a lot, but they
Right.
do increase them yearly,
Right.
which that was, one of the reasons why it always came to Public Works. It's a good, like I said, we've been doing this for a lot of years.
Mhm.
And it's a good working relationship. And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
Mr. Livermore explained it really good.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Any comments or questions from other members? Mr. Biter.
How did this come to be our responsibility when this is clearly in Loyalsock Township?
Before me,
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the back history on it. This is something when I walked in, Adam's like, we do this.
We do this.
I'm like, okay. So I went down and looked at it. I understand that it's a maintenance.
Okay.
It's a levy maintenance thing. and We
Right.
have the equipment. And they
Understood.
pay us for that. They pay us to utilize the, I
Right.
think they pay some level of depreciation on the equipment, like not enough money, right? But they pay us to do it.
Yeah, they
and
pay us.
there's-
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is what they pay us is a little more than like just mileage, right?
Right,
You know,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So may or may not be a great deal, but certainly makes more sense than Loyalsock owning the equipment, us owning the equipment and.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
If they're willing to let us annex this portion of Loyalsock Township, I mean, we can certainly talk about that as well.
Well, we want more than the levy.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll take part of the golden.
The levy and that protected by it.
Yeah. And there's only two workers that are committed to this, so it's not
Correct.
a big part of, big drain on our personnel.
And there are flood control workers that are doing it, correct? That-
Yeah,
Yeah.
R two.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
and yes, for me, motion passes 7-0. Scott, are you handling 12 and 13?
The mayor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to just stay up there and knock them out?
sure.
We'll move to item 12. Resolution authorizing filing a statewide local share assessment grant through the Commonwealth Financing Authority and designated the mayor and finance director and officials to execute all documents. Is there a motion and a second?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore.
Yeah, so what you have before you is a resolution authorizing statewide local share assessment grant through Commonwealth Financing Authority. What this is a grant that it's a resolution that's required to come through council due to the application. There is no match to the city, no cost. It's about the information I got. This went through Public Works as well.
Mrs. Katz, Public Works.
Yes, it's trying to find my notes. I can't find my notes.
Yeah, I kind of changed it up on you, sorry.
Thank you. No, it did come to Public Works and I just can't find my notes, but anyhow, it's. I'm trying to remember it. I can't remember what I went through.
I
with it.
think
know
one
I
of the
made-
questions is what the money,
Right.
I wrote down a note saying casino money.
Yeah, casino.
That's right. It
Yeah.
came, the casino money. That's. to do this. How can I forget
Casino
that?
money. The local share
It's a local. share.
Yeah.
Mhm.
that we have to take care of this. Comes out of, rolling dice and that kind of stuff. Slot machines.
Roll the dice.
Any comments or questions? So
What? Yeah.
I don't, I'm trying to pull it up online and I'm missing it.
Yeah, that's.
Do we-
Just thinking,
Yeah, well, I'm trying to pull it up one.
because it didn't go to me. I didn't.
No, it went to Public Works.
We
Do we have any anticipation of what potential grant funding is going to go towards? Was that ever part of the conversation? Is it on the resolution that I can't find in front of
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, it's
I don't have.
We
I
don't
have the
know.
resolution. I don't have the resolution. I don't know.
Okay.
the resolution says,
Yeah, we're trying to get grant money, but we just don't know what for.
And then the
Right.
one good thing about it, we don't have a match with this.
Yeah.
That's the one good thing about it.
well,
You have the hard copy.
Right.
Can I see it? Thanks.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions?
Um,
Ms. Mealy?
did you, what was your question?
Well, just what are we anticipating if we get grant money?
Mhm.
What are we planning to use it for?
Oh,
As
lighting it.
Lycoming College baseball
Lighting
field.
for the
So this is
college.
effectively,
Ah.
we're a pass through, right?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah,
That makes sense then. So right here it is.
Okay.
Didn't line up with, okay.
And Lycoming College is any match that would be required for any reason. Lycoming College is obviously
But we're
spending
guaranteed that there's no match required.
from us.
That is guaranteed, right? There is no match.
No match.
Cool. Any other comments or questions?
Just that I apologize for not having realized that I didn't have this. I actually read that and thought that it was related to a local match for RBT services. And
Yeah.
and so, which we do every year, and was just like, okay, yeah. And did
Yeah.
not realize that it was something.
Yeah, no, I
different.
have it. It's labeled differently online compared to what it is on the agenda, which is what was messing me up. So
Yeah.
that answers my question.
Okay.
So any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Hearing seen none, Mr. Allison,
yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
and yes, for me, motion passes 7-0. Item 13, resolution authorizing execution of Bowman Field rental agreement. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore.
Yeah, what you have before you is a resolution authorizing execution of Bowman Field rental agreement. We sat down with Doug and Gabe a little while, a couple weeks ago to go over some changes, and the changes that we came up with that for the city's end was it's an increase of $100 for a single game and a double header, $100 as well. Cutters went to one flat single fee, $375. You get it all. There's no enhanced like it was last year. It's a double headers, $475. It's a one-stop shop to do it all. That's really the major changes for Bowman, and then the extra $100 for the city that we tried. I think last year's was 600. I think it's going to be 7 now. And we discussed that. That came through Public Works as well.
It did
Thank
come-
you, Mrs. Katz, Public Works.
It did come to Public Works. And like Mr. Livermore said, it was a good thing that we took out the enhancement program that we were doing last year. It was really kind of confusing. So put it all in under one fee, like they're doing for a single game and a double header is, more, it's easier. It's easier on everybody. We're still not making and covering all of our costs at this point. But there, the Rec Commission and Bowman Field Commission, they are talking about increments, small increments yearly. So this, to be prepared. And everything keeps on going up in price, and it's a shame because this is, used by a lot of local schools. But there's nothing we can do from the standpoint, it costs us money to do it. So, it's a good thing, and people want to play in that field. It's a professional ball field, and but we're still losing a little bit of money. I don't think we lose that much, but we're not breaking even.
No, we're right now $1,075 a game. to play there. I think state college spikes is running around 2,500 a game. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting there, right? You know, we don't try to bite off too much, you know, increments, bring it up a little bit, but it is a good facility and, you know, is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what we discussed.
Ms. Mealy.
And what does it cost us to have someone play on the field? Do we have any idea?
I'll have to get the breakdown for you because it depends if they use the lighting. And I'll talk to Sean about that. I had a breakdown from last year.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
we were at.
I understand it's a pain in the butt to get those numbers, I
Right.
guess, but a part of what I'm asking is like, are we factoring, we're probably not factoring in what it will eventually cost us to replace the field if we were to, you know what I mean? Like, none of
Right.
that's factored in. When we're
No.
talking about what it costs us to
Yeah.
to
Yep.
let somebody utilize the field, we're talking about the cost of electricity, the cost of staffing it, the
Right.
cost of getting it ready and cleaning it up after they leave, like just the very immediate costs.
Yep.
They're not contributing to the
No.
overall cost of maintaining
No,
that
and
facility.
like I said, I
Okay.
don't have the number in front of me. I can get that, but I did run the numbers last year and we were losing.
Okay.
We weren't making anything.
We're not losing a lot, but we're.
No,
losing-
no,
okay.
we're not. It's just, you know, when you factor in the water usage of toiletries, if there's any lights being used,
Right.
that they come in and take it and that's what it is. It's,
Okay, so I think I mean, that to me is the valid point here. Is
Right.
that yes, we're increasing prices. That doesn't actually mean that the city is not in any way making money on this.
Yeah.
And even
No,
if we
we're-
were, there would be all of the money that we spend on the facility on an annual basis and all the money that we may at some point have to spend on the facility on an annual basis. You know, and none of this is contributing toward that at all. So right. Anyway, thanks, Scott.
right.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Any other comments, Mr. Pelisi?
Just had a quick question. I noticed that this is pretty vague in general as who it refers to as the lessee. I'm assuming that it's just strictly the cross cutters because there's no mention of anything about the MLB game that's coming up. Do we have any idea when that is going to be, when that discussion is going to come up?
I don't know. I think the mayor is just talking to MLB right now. This is strictly cutters. This is their agreement.
Yeah.
I,
Believe the MLB's current contract includes this upcoming game.
right,
So I think for when we get into, for the future, like starting 2025
Mm-hmm.
is where you're talking about, Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
So it is a separate contract, and I think kind of where you're going is, you know, we need to revisit, and I would agree.
Well, the
We need to
mere fact
revisit
that
it.
we're talking about how we're actually losing money every game with the cross cutters, with this trying to get everything bumped up. You know, the agreement with the cutters and the agreement with MLB are separate.
Yep.
Some would say unrelated, but related. And everything that we give away for the MLB game, certainly it'd be nice to get a little bit of something back to help offset the losses from the current contracts that we have in place with the cutters.
This is not the cutters. This is like, say, Williamsport or
Yep.
Loyalsock wants to come and play, has nothing to do with the cutters.
Yeah.
This is like the local.
Yeah.
The local organizations that utilize the field. This is the contract between us, the cutters, and the local organizations,
Mm-hmm.
but.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the cutters are a whole other conversation.
Regardless, point
Yeah.
well taken, Mr.
Yeah,
Pelisi, and
exactly.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
and yes, motion passes 7-0. Scott, thank you
Thank you.
very much. We'll jump back up to item 11, resolution awarding the document conversion service project to ScanTech Information Solutions. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Assistant Chief Bolt, welcome, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, President Yoder, Vice President Biter, members of council. Again, this is a resolution awarding document conversion services project for the digitization of our microfilm records to the company called ScanTech, which is out of Willow Grove, PA, in a total amount of $48,140. This is a project that we've been needing to do, I believe, for well before my tenure as a law enforcement officer. And this will actually be funded through the grant that we have from PCCD. So there will be no cost to the city for this project. We have about 1.6 million pages of records dating back to the early 70s, or some of them before. In order for our government record keeping, for, let's say, police reports, things of that nature, they need to be preserved and have been preserved in microfilm. If you guys know the medium of microfilm, over time it degrades. It will break and it will potentially be ruined. And so there is actually a time factor on trying to get these done before that actually comes into play. Last fall, we did a request for qualifications. So we put out the RFQ. About 6 companies responded, Scantech being one of them. After we went and evaluated what their qualifications were, we then put out an RFP to see which one of those companies would be interested in doing the project. And Scantech, of the RFP companies, was the only one that carried over from the RFQ. And we did have 4 bidders, but they are the least costly, I would say a successful bidder, responsible bidder. So they have a wonderful facility. They do numerous government contracts, and they should be more than adequate to take care of the project of us converting all of our older documents into a preservable digital form. This was not reviewed in Public Works or Public Safety. I don't believe we had Public Safety Committee this week. So I am open to any and all questions if necessary about this project and process.
Any comments or questions from members? Mr. Biter?
What is the process of getting the documents to them? Will they come and pick them up? Do we have to
Yes,
send an officer?
that was one of the criteria that was necessary.
Okay.
We want to continue with, I don't want to say chain of custody because it's not evidence, but because they are government documents,
Yeah.
because they do have PII and other sensitive information, there is a process that we make sure we evaluated where they will securely come take them point to point from here to their facility. We've also double checked what their security is that they've displayed for their facility, how they will be taking care of the information, what safety measures they'll put into play, the fact that they do have insurance, and what the outputs are. We've also went and talked with some of the other police departments and government entities that have used them, and they have all been very satisfied that we have spoken to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Mealy?
And not because I don't think that we should preserve all this information, but just somewhat out of curiosity, how are we required to retain all of this information indefinitely?
Because of the police reports, some of
Uh-huh.
them being obviously major crimes, homicides,
Mhm.
things of that nature, those must be maintained. Not
Okay.
all of it does. However, I would refer to Austin for the details of what we can and can dispose of. At this
Okay.
point in time, though, we don't even know what we have on there to retain because of the way that it was all gathered together. So you'll have, it's just linear.
Okay.
So all of the reports were scanned in. So before we can even dispose of it, we have to see what we have.
Have to go through it.
Yes.
Okay, and so the easiest way to do that, as they digitize it, they will also be identifying what the materials are?
They will absolutely be using recognition software so that will help us identify what it is. They're not going through it to try and understand and recognize it.
Okay.
They're just digitizing the format we have. Then we can go ahead later and pursue
Okay.
any and all.
But we'll be able to do like word searches for
Absolutely. That-
murder
yeah.
investigation, stuff like that.
That was an essential
Um,
criteria.
Okay, and is there? But sorry, Austin, I'll get there. Once it is digitized, then the plan is to offload materials that we determine to be of no need to the city, basically.
Once we have that, once we know what we have, then we'll
Okay.
follow along with any of the rules and regulations that we're allowed to do with retaining any of our
Okay.
information.
Because I'm assuming that even if it's digital, 1.6 million pages of anything is taking up a substantial amount of space, right?
Well, right now it's all on cartridges and it's quite several hundred.
Yeah.
When it's done, it'll fit on a thumb drive.
Yeah, right. So no, it'll be a lot better, but
Yes,
still.
yes.
You'd prefer to call it down to the information that we might need to reference at some point.
Yes.
Austin, what was the?
So the city adopted or opted to use the municipal records manual.
Mhm.
So we do have a manual that the state has put out. This, I think it's a historical, I can't remember the exact name of the entity, but it's a state level, that there's a manual that says, here is every type of record that the city, that a municipality could, in our opinion, could have. Here's the schedules for how long you have to retain them.
Mhm.
We follow all those. And then in that manual, they also have a process for destruction of records
Mhm.
and conversion of records to electronic form, how to store them and how to go about disposing of ones that you feel are, based on the manual's retention schedules, are no longer necessary to keep in either hard copy or microfiche or microfilm or whatever. So we do have it's not a, what do we have to figure this out? We do have a full manual that is quite comprehensive.
Yeah.
So we'll be following that.
Got it. I mean, I know that there are a lot of onerous requirements because I think I have to hang on to my PLCB receipts for 7 years or something like that. It might be less than that, but I mean, if I have to hang on to my liquor receipts for 7 years, I can only imagine how long you have to hang on to. But good. It's good to know that at least we have, a system in place that will be playing out and that it will at least be on a thumb drive, whatever's left. So thanks.
Any other comments or Mrs. Katz?
So they're gonna come and pick up all of the film, right?
Yes, they will,
And
they
then-
will take care of transportation, conversion and return.
And how long is this process gonna take?
It can take roughly 16 weeks, I think they said.
Mhm.
I have to actually take a look, because we had several different companies, but I believe the time frame is 16 weeks.
Okay, but it's not gonna say you need a record. Will you have access to them to get into a record if you need it?
No, I will not have access to this at this time, once we have it. However, we do have these in duplicate. So
Oh,
if we
okay.
absolutely had to, we could. Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, I know.
Sorry, that was just a whole other level there.
Yes.
Okay,
So we can access the information should we need to.
Just
But,
wanted to make
yeah.
sure that you can.
We won't be able to get those specific items, but we will have access.
It's great that there's a company out there to do this.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
can I ask one final follow-up question?
No,
I
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
I'm the pain
please.
in the ass. How often do you actually go back to the microfiche? Like, when was the last time somebody got out one of these rolls and,
It's not every day,
okay,
but we absolutely do have, we have officers and detectives that are still working cold cases.
okay.
We do have other information that ties into current investigations.
Hmm.
We do have other things that are requested by other organizations.
Mhm.
Think about when we actually had they found the deceased person in pieces that happened. I mean, there are cases that are back from then that
Mhm.
now
Right.
become
Yeah.
current, so it is necessary.
Okay. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm not disputing
Yeah,
it's necessary.
yeah.
I was just
And
curious
it-
as to whether it had been down there for 30 years and nobody.
No, actually, yeah.
Okay.
We actually maintain these right now in our records department, and we do actually use them frequently. And
Okay.
because of using them frequently, like any other microfiche, exposing them, it degrades, so.
All right. Okay, thank you. That's the end of my inquiry into this issue.
Yes,
Thanks very
sorry.
much.
A quick question from my end. So we're digitizing like what'd you say, 1.5 million roughly,
1.6, yep.
1.6? What kind of server capacity, do you have any idea, like back end, like server capacity? Do we have the capacity? I assume there's particular security requirements given the nature of what we're storing. What, can you speak to what that looks like?
I would rather not.
Okay, well, I mean,
Yeah. But we do have, believe it or not, 1.6 million pages. It's
Yeah.
it's not terribly
Okay.
big. I mean, these are, nowadays you can fit terabyte. I mean, we can fit everything on
Yeah.
several terabytes and it doesn't take up much room. So, it's not, and I would even let, if he's here.
Yeah, he's not. That's why
okay. Yep, but Chris could speak better to that and as well as, Sean
you're
from our
thinking
IT.
about it and
Yeah,
have thought through
absolutely.
it. That's the important thing for
Yeah.
me. So
It'll take up a lot less space than the physical.
sure, it will.
Yeah.
And it's good. Don't get me wrong. I just, I mean, I don't know about you, but when we start talking like digitization of stuff, I mean, I don't want to say it's a black box, but I mean, it's a lot of like just technical items that go into it. It's not just, oh yeah, we're going to scan it and you're good to go. I mean,
Correct. Yeah, there is
and
also.
especially when you
Right.
talk very sensitive information that you're
Yes.
talking about. I know we've gone through a lot of like cybersecurity type stuff with
Yes.
Chris here recently, which is all good.
Mhm. And again, these are older records. These are pre-computer, so these are either typed or handwritten.
Yeah.
So the character recognition portion of it for what it can do is going to be helpful. Just to search these documents. There are also some photographs and things, but this isn't like storing body camera footage or any of the modern files. So it should have a much smaller capacity for storage once it's done.
Yeah, my experience has been hit or miss with that.
Mhm.
I mean, depending on the
Yeah.
medium and all that kind of stuff. And then if I missed this in the conversation, my apologies. Just tell me that if you're repeating yourself, my bad. When this comes back to us, I'm assuming this is organized in a pretty easy way to where we're not really gonna have to hunt a lot.
That's the plan. That's the whole plan. Yeah. So currently, and it's not extremely difficult to hunt for right now, but this will make it infinitely easier because obviously we can't keyword search with physical medium right
Yeah.
now. So
Good. Very good. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
and yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Assistant Chief Bolt. We will move to item 14. Resolution of the city of Williamsport to approve substantial amendment to fiscal year 2023 annual action plan for CDBG and home investment partnerships program. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Skip, welcome, sir.
Good evening, President Yoder, members of council. Before you this evening is a resolution to amend the 2023 annual action plan for the CDBG program within the city of Williamsport. The reasons for this are twofold. One is for the funding that was allocated in 2023 to go to streets, which because of some issues, particularly getting ERs done timely, the funds were not utilized and other funds were used to replace those funds. And right now we're bringing to you the change to the amendment to change that to use those funds on Little League Boulevard, coupling together the 2023 funding for streets improvements and the 2024 funds for streets improvements. And the project at Little League Boulevard is about $750,000 as estimated at this time. That would be a full reconstruction of the street. And if there are any technical questions on that item, I'd defer to Mr. Livermore or to Mr. Scott. But we will be doing a full reconstruction. We will be doing accessibility ramps as necessary, either replacing ones that are deteriorated and need to be replaced, or putting in new ones where there may not be any presently. If there is a ramp that meets ADA requirements that are in the area of this project, they will be maintained. And then the other part of this resolution is to allocate the funds that are for administrative purposes in the 2023 plan. We had allocated $141,500, which was to cover the CEDACOG element of administration of the plan. Our cap allowed us to go up to $204,700. So we are in this amendment allocating $63,200 for other administrative purposes to cover the costs of community and economic development. This was presented to the ERC. It has been reviewed by Austin. And just as a follow-up, we will be bringing to you the annual action plan for 2024 as soon as we have the allocation for HUD for this year. As soon as that comes in, we'll bring it to you so we don't have to change the numbers and come back to you 2 or 3 times because we're going to make a guess. We have a pretty good idea, but you know that it could change by a couple of $1,000s and we want to bring it in one time. With that, I'm here to answer any questions. Jamie Schroeder is on Zoom to answer any questions. Are there any questions?
I'll turn it over to Mr. Biter from ERC. Jamie, my apologies. I meant to move you up and it completely slipped my mind. So thank you in
No
advance.
worries. Thank you.
Mr. Biter.
Yes, we did have this presented to us at ERC yesterday morning, and I do appreciate that. My questions weren't specifically in regards to the action plan. The amendment seemed fairly straightforward. My questions were more involved with the project that these funds are going to be allocated towards. So I will ask that Mr. Livermore, if you'd like to explain just a little bit more, a few of the questions that came up in the committee meeting were what portions of Little League Boulevard were going to be paved, what the scope of that project was going to be potentially, because it hasn't been done in a while, and then also new traffic lights that could be potentially put up, and where the funding for those traffic lights was going to be coming from.
Right, so the project is going to be from Mulberry to Walnut. We're anticipating a full depth reconstruct because of what was in there in the past. We don't know. Some of it may be a mill and fill. We're not sure until we get into there. Will be inlet raising, bringing them up to the grade. Manholes will be up to the final grade. Any ADA curb cuts in those areas will all be done. And so that'll be a full paved job this year. And next year, the 2025, we got a grant for Green Let Go, Little League, and Pepper and Pine. And Little League and Pine. So them two intersections will be totally rehabbed in 2025 as well. What else did you ask?
The other question that I would ask, when this project starts, given the scope of it, is Little League Boulevard going to be potentially closed for portions of the project?
We haven't got to that point to see if it's potentially could be a night pave. I'm not really sure yet.
Okay.
We gotta get into the weeds with that with the contractor, because in theory, me looking at that project could be a full width pool versus one side and the other side. If we do it at a certain time, maybe in the evening, at night, if we could pull it off, it could be a one pass deal. So I don't know that logistically, whether it's going to be one lane will be closed down. I don't think we'll completely shut it down, but if anything, it'll be at least one side. And we'll just have to flag around each intersection, each block as we go up through.
Those were all the questions that I had in regard to that.
All right. Any other comments or questions, Ms. Mealy?
Did you doubt it? Mr. Livermore, so this is happening in 2025.
This paving project is happening in 2024.
It is happening in 2024. I actually just drove down Little League Boulevard and was like, holy, I mean, and I feel like I do it all the time, but I just noticed for whatever reason, maybe a week ago, exactly what rough shape it was in. But I don't know why. But a handful of questions. How long has it been since we addressed that street?
Ugh. I don't know. I don't know how long it's been since it's been done.
So we're looking at we're looking at new signals at Hepburn and at Pine.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. 125.
And neither of those intersections currently have pedestrian signaling.
Which that'll be a part of it.
That will be a part of the new
Right.
signals.
Yeah.
Good. I guess, so a handful of smaller questions about the whole thing then. That street is both exceptionally pedestrian friendly because it has that super wide sidewalk that runs down the one side, and one of the least pedestrian friendly streets in the city because it's kind of a straightaway and traffic moves really quickly down there. Not to mention that we've lined it with chain link fence on both sides so that you can't get across that whole area of town. Even between Hepburn Street and Walnut Street, you can't go north to south without climbing a bunch of fences. I have friends who've done that. That's why I know that you can in fact get north to south if you're willing to try hard enough. Is there, I know that our timeline is short, given that we're trying to do it this year. The street's a wholly owned city street, correct?
Pardon me?
The street's a city street,
Yes.
right? None of
Yep.
this is,
Yep.
right, a state road. That we could potentially put a crosswalk somewhere on that long stretch between Hepburn and Walnut, and B, work with the authority to get any sort of access, pedestrian access.
yeah, I
across
mean-
those, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that
once-
even if a car can't drive that way, that a person could walk that way safely.
Right,
Right.
and that's once we get into, Bill and I get into part of the design,
Mhm.
yes, that can be discussed on potentials, yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking because that to me is something that we've needed to address desperately, and I sort of
Mhm.
never put a lot of thought into it because we weren't doing anything to the street. But now that we're doing something to the street, it would be an ideal time to address pedestrian
right.
issues. Well, well, actually, you don't need a bike lane because the sidewalk's wide enough, you can bike it. That's the nice thing about that street, but if you can't get across it on a bike,
Mhm.
then you know, and then, because it's a shame that we're not doing Market Street, that the signal at Market Street is not gonna be addressed, right?
Mark.
Market and Little League Boulevard is on the intersection right there by Lycoming College.
Yep.
The reason that I ask is people cross from Lycoming College to come into downtown all the time there, and there's no
Yep.
pedestrian interface whatsoever.
Right.
Right.
Friday used to be.
I go there every day, and at least 2 or 3 times a
Couple of-
week, there's a pedestrian that just gets caught.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
Right,
It
yeah.
is.
So I mean, I'm assuming we don't have the funding to address that light, but if there were funding somehow to materialize, just that is also,
Yeah.
Little League
Yeah,
Boulevard
we're
is
bringing up-
horrible.
Right.
I'm sorry. As somebody who walked around town, it is just a horrible stretch. So I'm excited that we're doing it, but I'm hoping that maybe we could take advantage of redoing Little League Boulevard to try and improve it for multimodal use, basically.
Right.
And we don't need to have this entire conversation here, but I would love to be involved in the planning process if we're doing that on a short timeline. Because my last question then is that we just planted a whole bunch of brand new street trees
Mhm.
on that drag.
Mhm.
A lot. I mean, 75 street trees or something
Sounds
like
about right.
that down
Yep.
Little League Boulevard. And I'm assuming that this paving, unless we update our street tree ordinance, is going to destroy those trees.
Shouldn't, we're not dating, it's curb to curb,
Okay,
so we ain't going out any wider. That road's
Okay.
24 feet wide right now, 2 12-foot lanes.
okay. And those trees are set back probably a couple of feet from the curb?
I think they're not measuring, I'm guessing 5, 6, 7 feet.
Are they that
somewhere in
far
that
back?
range.
They might be. Yeah, I don't know. I helped
Right.
plan them, but I
I
don't
think
remember.
when Chad put them in,
Yeah.
he plans going forward now on
Okay.
the overhang of where they're gonna actually come in, so he
Got it,
makes
got
sure he
it.
try, if he had the space there in order to get the setback, so I think he took care of that. when he
Okay,
did it.
awesome. Good. So we shouldn't have any issues, at least with the investment there.
Shouldn't.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, anyway, yeah, if you guys would be willing to include me at all on that, or anybody
Right.
who's got, who's kind of a walker around town, I think we have the opportunity to make some big differences
Right.
there with.
Yeah, once we
No
get
real
further,
investment.
we get further along in the process of design, yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because that's cool. And so Skip, I'm assuming, is this also, are we funding streets in 2024? Or is this is the,
We're doing one project in 2024. It's Little League Boulevard.
okay,
Incorporating the 2023 money.
right,
Give us enough funding for the $750,000.
got it. So this is our streets money in 24
Yeah,
too for
yeah,
this,
yeah.
but I mean, but it's doing a street, so. it's
Yeah,
not
so
like-
we had, we
right.
ended up having 700,000 because we didn't spend last year's money because we didn't get the ERs in.
Got it.
So we pulled it over on this year.
Yeah, right.
to take care of it.
And Campbell to Walnut is part of the Pathway to Health?
Campbell to Walnut
is
was,
in
we
better
looked
shape?
at that's not part, we weren't planning on paving that because that's fairly new.
Okay,
I don't know how many years old it is, but it's not that old.
okay, all right. Yeah, it was Pathway to Health, right? We did something with it. Yeah, okay, good. So that is the Walnut scope, Walnut to Mulberry scope will
Mulberry,
cover us.
yep.
Okay, good, awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Remind me, so this covers the entire project, or is there other external funding out there? I remember you saying something about a Green Light Go grant
For 2 signals, right?
for 2 signals
Yeah, so
So-
Green Light Go, that's something we applied for. that
for the
we got.
signals.
Yes, for
And then
signals.
and then everything else is us, whether it's HUD
Right.
or general fund or capital,
So-
whatever.
So this year, and we haven't really sat down, this is all preliminary, I'm estimating Bill and I are estimating right around probably 1.2, 1.3 million.
Okay.
For this year's paving contract, 750,000 is going to be Little League.
Mhm.
And I pull out 350,000 out of my liquid fuels and we have 250,000 out of Act 13 allocated.
Mhm.
So we're going to be in that ballpark range of getting that project and trying to button up some of these other ones that need to be done
Mhm.
with the
Okay.
extra 500.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, kind of, when I think about grants, I mean, like, I wonder if there's other stuff out there that we're missing. And that's not really a question of you. That's just really a question of how are we using more so Delta, our state consultant.
Right.
I feel like I see a couple other consultants that we're not working with. They're posting stuff all the time about just basic like PennDOT grants, DCD grants that we don't seem to be either going after or getting. Some of
Right.
which I feel like would be eligible for this type of work. And so I think we need to revisit kind of
Yeah.
our strategy of hunting grants, that kind of stuff moving forward with this type of work. I know we have hired and
Right.
filled that grant administrator.
Right.
And I know, I think if the plan is for that person to do some type of grant work, I feel like this also will be a good area potentially for them to sniff around to catch some of the low hanging fruit that is below the
Right.
grade of like Delta, Keller Associates as well. So like it would just be really good to start seeing more of that coming through as or at least being looked at and communicated. Well, why isn't it happening? Or we looked, nothing
Mhm.
there, that kind of thing. And again, that's
Right.
not really a you, Scott.
Right.
That's
and-
more of a, Skip mayor kind of thing.
Right. And I've been a part of some conversations with the
Yeah.
mayor and Valerie on what's out there. And I know Bill has a numerous wealth of knowledge about grants. I don't know so much, but I know,
Yeah.
certain grants are out there only for certain things, whether it fit
Yeah.
our scope that we're trying to find. But I know Valerie is looking into that and trying to find that low
Yeah.
hanging fruit. like you said.
And that's good. I mean, and I think this is a good opportunity to do it. Again, I think when we talked about that position last year, I think a lot of what we talked about was like, hey, like, I think we recognize the need for pulling a lot of that data stuff, compliance stuff off of people. Sure, there might be a sliver of that where some of that low hanging fruit, the easy stuff is applicable, but I do, while this might sound counterproductive, but I do want to caution us on completely ignoring the consultants that we have under contract. I always think they should be the first priority and first go-to for any of that kind of stuff.
No, yeah,
Right.
she's working with
Yeah.
Delta
And
and
that's
side by
awesome.
side with that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Miss Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
and yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Skip. You want to just do item 17, quick, Skip, while you're up, or?
Be glad to, sir.
Your call. We'll move to item 17. Certificates of appropriateness from the Historic Architectural Review Board. We've got 3, 700 West Third Street, Joy Rogers, 730 to 732 West Third, Mirabita Properties, and 928 West Third, West Smallinger. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Skip, anything specifically to
Well, the
add from the board?
President Yoder, members of council, the only thing I would add is the Jody Rogers project will make that building look more uniform. Whereas right now it's a kind of a piecemeal exterior on it. It will be uniforms front to back, side to side, and also the replacement of the deteriorated sidewalk will improve the safety issues relevant to that project. And the Marabito project the front porch will be converted to look similar to a lot of the other properties in the area. And it also will then provide handicapped accessibility to those properties. That's all I would have.
Thank you, Skip. Are there any comments or questions from members on the certificates of appropriateness? Any update on where we're at with the the HARB ordinance.
Well, the update I'll give you, we're just about there. It's going to be going to the SHPO, the State Historic Museum Commission, for their comments. Then we're coming back to council for your comments, and then we will do the final draft and bring it to council for a vote.
Thank you. All right, no comments. Hearing seen none, Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes,
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
and yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Skip.
No, thank you.
We'll move back up to item 15, resolution authorizing changes to the fire civil service rules and regulations. Is there a motion, a second?
So moved.
second.
Motion, a second. Last and certainly not least, Mr. Chief Unks. Good evening, sir.
Good evening again. So we've had some changes within the fire department. We are including a platoon chief that takes care of training. So it's going to be called a platoon training chief. So we had to make some modifications to the Civil Service Board, or not the board, but the Civil Service rules and regulations to include that. So the section that was added was the platoon training chief. And because we added that, we had to make some word modifications with the under the platoon chief, and also with the wording on the last bullet point on page 18. And that was previously it had said qualifications will not exceed the level of training, and we just cleaned it up and made it that exam questions will not exceed the level of training. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions on this? This is going to go to public safety, but we didn't have public safety this week, so.
Seems pretty standard.
Okay. Ms. Mealy.
are there any, random, but are there any financial implications for the city with this new training chief position?
It was included in the budget.
Yeah,
So there's not going to be any modifications to the.
additional above and beyond what we saw.
Yep.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes,
Ms. Mealy.
Yes,
Mr. Biter.
Yes.
And yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
We'll move to item 18, excuse me. Except for filing, Public Works meeting minutes from April 29th and May 9th, 2023. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Hearing seen none. Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz. Excuse me. I was doing so good and I almost like went, Mrs. Frank, and she's not here. So, thank you. Ms. Mealy.
pardon me, what am I voting now? Sorry, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Biter. Yes. Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Item 19.
Yes, yeah.
Item
yeah,
19, announcements. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be Thursday, March 14th, 7 PM right here. Upcoming meetings, Monday, March 4th, 12 PM Planning Commission. Tuesday, March 12th, 11:30 is Public Safety, 1 PM Finance, 2:30 Public Works. Wednesday, March 13th, 9 AM is Economic Revitalization. Thursday, March 14th, 7 PM is our city council meeting. Are there any comments from members of city council? Any comments from members of the administration? Any comments from members of the public? Okay.
Somebody,
Mrs. Fink was first, I think. Bernie. Oh, Up to you, whoever wants to go first.
I was just concerned.
Share.
Yeah, you had this button.
I'll pass it.
In order and pass them as you get to them.
If you would state your name and an address for the record, remember you have 3 minutes. And welcome and thank you for the
Thank you.
pictures.
Okay, I'm Lisa Fink from 338 Mifflin Place, and I wrote things down so I don't babble. Hello, I appreciate you giving me a minute of your time. I want to begin by talking about the historic houses and buildings in this area. Some people don't like old things. They'd like to see all the buildings demolished, all the old buildings demolished. But there are some, in fact, a lot of people who appreciate the unique architecture in this area. In December, we had an offshoot of Preservation Williamsport host Victorian Christmas. This was their best year. Thousands of people turned out to tour houses, churches, and the old YMCA. This event brings people in from all over. In fact, they come by the busload. They stay in our hotels, they eat in our restaurants, and it gets bigger every year. Got smaller with COVID, and they are just booming right now. Those ladies are killing it. Our unique architecture is an asset, and City Hall should be the centerpiece of this tour. The Victorian Christmas ladies are currently lining up houses for next year. So I'd like to point out that Jay Bass had a year to prepare after signing up for the tour. I was unable to take the tour, but I heard that the only thing the crowd saw was a freshly drywalled entryway with a table and some cookies. The docents spent the weekend apologizing to people for wasting their time coming to see the Y when there was nothing to see. Jay Bass bought the Y for $1 in 2019. He has said that he only wants to improve Williamsport. His actions do not match his words. I took these photos last week. While I was taking these pictures, a man with a stroller was forced onto the street because Jay Bass has been blocking the sidewalk on 4th Street for years. The first picture is of heavy construction equipment parked on Elmira. It blocks the sidewalk and is clearly visible from the historic section of town. The next 4 pictures are of the generator, chain link fence, tanks, and porta potties on 4th Street. They have been there for years, impeding foot traffic and being a very large eyesore. In the next picture, you can see the defacement of the actual building. The limestone has been etched, most likely by a pressure washer that was improperly used. I have talked with some masons, and this may not be repairable. And that's very sad. They didn't know what they were doing, and they etched the building. The next picture highlights the construction debris that is constantly strewn about the area. Jay Bass says that he wants to do good things for Williamsport, and this is not good. How are all of the items I just said, not codes violations? And this is the company who is first in line to buy City Hall. The last picture is the custom-made sign by Fish Real Estate. I know you all have seen it, but have you actually looked at it? It's unfinished 2x4s held down by cinder blocks. It's the perfect sign to advertise a condemned building. But do you think that is a good sign to advertise a historic landmark, an architectural gem?
Mrs. Fink, if you can wrap up your comments.
It's no wonder the highest bid was $500,000. You could throw a stone across the street and hit the building that Herman and Luther just sold for $1.2 million. A building that does not have the stature of City Hall, is on less than half the land, and has 2/3 of the square footage. Just some things to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Bernie, and then Bruce. Yep, if you state your name and address for the record, and you have 3
Bernie
minutes.
Katz, 1014 Walnut Street. My wife, Mrs. Katz, city council is a bit worried. And no, I listened to the Little League Boulevard reconstruction, et cetera. Okay. Little League Boulevard is one of our most important streets in the city, and it has to be very carefully taken care of. I worked with Penn College, the horticultural department this year. They redid the rain garden on Pine and Edwin Street, and I had them look, there is a large garden at the end where Little League Boulevard enters Mulberry Street. And when you try to make a left to go north, it's extremely difficult to see traffic coming down. They did trim some of the high weeds in a sense that were there, but nobody seems to know or assumes that Lycoming College built that and they have nothing to do with it anymore. So I'm hoping Penn College will work on that, but I think Streets and Parks also needs to look at that garden at the end of Little League Boulevard entering Mulberry Street so that traffic accidents don't happen there. And the second thing is walkways, pedestrians, Pine Street and Little League Boulevard. Market Street, Little League Boulevard. We need all the pedestrian signals where people can walk across and touch, and crosswalks, because it's a beautiful street and it needs to be well taken care of, and more beautification even added to it. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record. 3
Good
minutes.
evening,
Welcome,
council.
Bruce.
My name is Bruce Huffman, 1000 Cherry Street in the city. I just wanted to kind of maybe see where things are with some things that were talked about last fall, specifically the RFQ that I think was talked about during an ERC committee meeting, where that stands in relation to, I believe it was for the evaluation of City Hall, future location of City Hall, things like that. I've looked on PennBid for it and haven't seen anything. I realize that you're not necessarily going to answer that question right now, but just wanted to keep it in your minds and things like that. Obviously what Mrs. Fink said, there's still a group that is very concerned about the status and location of City Hall. I noted that you mentioned the possibility, or that you actually were going to talk about real estate in your executive session. I know you can't tell me what it's about, but hopefully at some future date that will become known, whether it's City Hall or some other city property, something like that. I just again, just want to keep those things in your mind, and also just say finally, I hope you all enjoyed your extra 24 hours that only occurs once every 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. And any other comments from the public? Mr. Mackey?
I'm not technically I'm the public, I'm a citizen too, but and Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing on the books that says we can't respond to any of these comments. Is that correct? This is more of a traditional type thing. So, I mean, Miss Lisa, how old is this picture with the scissor lifts kind of blocking the sidewalk? You took this, you took this picture last week and this is still sitting there. So Gary, I mean, he can't be blocking the sidewalk like this, right? So at what point do we just do we say move it or we're going to tow it? But you can't block a sidewalk, right?
So they can block the sidewalk as long as there's another option as far as on the other side of the street. We did talk to him last week and asked him how long.
Could you, Gary, I'm sorry, could you just come up to the microphone? So I mean, are there signs directing people to the other side of the, are there signs that say sidewalk closed? I mean, I don't.
We did bring that to his attention last week. The bottom line, he does have an active permit. He can close off a street providing that there is another access across the street. They were doing some work out front. We did ask them at this point in time that he basically wrap up that side of it, or at least move it as far as on the weekends and things of that nature. So, and we have not got a response back from him, but I will address that again tomorrow.
And then as far as this pictures of this debris here, there's no fence here blocking this site from somebody to just wander onto this and severely injure themselves. I mean, potentially. I mean, again, like, I appreciate that he's fixing up this building, but he needs to be held accountable to the same standards as anyone else. So, yeah, I just, I would-
Understand.
yeah. So,
Let us know how it goes tomorrow. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, John. All right, I'll take a motion in a second for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
yep.
Aye.
Sure.
Meeting adjourned.